This is Duke University.
Noel is heading up the wine selections for our dinner, Subnature and Culinary Culture, the Nordic Food Lab, and Carolina chefs.
Close your body language off as much as possible.
Stand up. I hear Marie in my head like, stand up straight, you slob.
I'm gonna see if I can break your composure.
Yeah, I'm sure. God, we don't have all day, Tom.
You tell me a little bit about the wines you've selected. What makes them subnatural? What makes them other? And how will they go with the foods that have been selected by the different chefs?
Well, you know, to me, wine itself is a subnature sort of product in a way. You know, fermentation is part of the process of making any wine. Just having wine at this dinner, I think, is appropriate because it kind of feeds right into the processes and some of the other things that the chefs are doing in terms of how they're handling the product. So for me, the challenge or the path was to sort of find wines that, in a very traditional sense, paired well with the dishes, but also had their own sort of story that, like you said, make them subnatural or other because of certain things about the way they're made. Two of the wines that we'll be doing that evening, the first, one of the five is a L'Étoile, which is a wine that comes from the Jura area of France, which is essentially French Alpine region, sort of in between Burgundy and Switzerland. And one of the old traditional ways of making wine in that area is through a method they call sous voile, or under a veil, which is somewhat akin to the way some sherries are made. The wine ages under a cap of yeast that forms because instead of being in a traditional fermentation vessel like a barrel that's mostly closed to the air, it's allowed to sort of gradually oxidize under this protective yeast cap. Certain wines from the area are much more oxidized in that way and get very sort of orange and nutty. In L'Étoile, which is Chardonnay is the base wine here, they sort of do a semi-sous voile process with that. The wine is allowed to age under a veil, not for a very long time, and then blended with some wine that has been aged in a more traditional way. So it brings that sort of controlled oxidation flavor of the wine, like I said, kind of roasted nuts, but it also has a very deep sort of mineral core, which kind of ties in some more of the kind of terroir-driven flavors. The wine we're going to be doing with the dessert course, which is a dish with clabbered cream, sort of a controlled souring process, which made me think of Chenin Blanc, the grape Chenin Blanc, because for me, all Chenin Blanc, whether it be dry or sweet, has sort of a lactic, creamy quality to it, along with a very pronounced sort of stone fruit quality, and this is going to contain cherries and cherry pits. So I thought that the flavors would work very well together and that creamy lactic quality. Plus, this is a demi-sec. It's the Huet Le Mont 2007 demi-sec, which means half dry, so it's a slightly sweet wine. And the way that they sort of attain the sweetness of this wine is that the grapes get basically infected with this sort of mold called the Botrytis cinerea, which lives on the grape skins and drinks the water out of the grapes, which kind of shrivels them up, raisinates them on the vine, and concentrates the sugars down. So it's sort of, you know, the core process that's happening in the vineyards here is, I think, a very subnatural idea. It's sort of, you know, advantageous bacterial life in the vineyards. It kind of brings in the sort of the food chain from sort of the smallest microscopic level up, and you know, also I think is going to go really, really well with the dish.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.